Hey guys, and welcome to another wonderful week of the Cleanup Step, sponsored by Comic Collector Shop of Sunnyvale, California. This is your host, Mike, and this week's going to be a little bit different than most weeks. It's going to be a much shorter episode, first off. Second, and very important to know, I'm going to be the only one commentating, so if you don't like the sound of my voice or the look of my face, now is the time to go. But with that, let's get on to our main topic, which is how to teach people effectively how to play Magic. And you may be thinking, well, I've taught people to play Magic before, I know what I'm doing. Or you may think, well, the person I want to teach to play Magic, they've seen me play a couple times and they're experienced board gamers. This video really isn't about them. This video is not about the buddy of yours at work who he plays, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Warhammer, and he's just looking to get into Magic because his community for one of his other games dried up. You can show him how to play however you like. Chances are he already has the concept. This is not for the 40-something stay-at-home mom with a master's degree in engineering who, has been playing Catan or harder board games with her kids every Wednesday night for the past 15 years and is just now getting free time on Fridays nights. She knows, she may not know Magic, but she can figure out what she's doing. This is for your 9-year-old cousin. This is for your 20-something college buddy who she's just getting into any kind of games. Like, she's maybe played some Pokemon video game, or she's played, things that have kept the minutia of how the game runs hidden. This is for your friends who play Hearthstone. This is for the people who don't really have any experience with games. Now, I've been teaching games professionally for basically the past 5 years. I'm the manager at Comic Collector Shop, one of the managers, and my responsibilities have been to teach people how to play the games. And so I've developed a system of teaching people effectively. This isn't showing them how to play. Showing them how to play is running through a game while they're watching, or maybe, you and 3 buddies all get down together and you have the new person jump in and you walk them through. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking sitting across from them and teaching them how the game works. And this, I feel, is the most important basic stepping stone for non-gamers when they're getting into games like Magic. You can port this over to a lot of different games. I use a very similar setup for Pokemon, for example, when I'm teaching kids how to play that. And a lot of the differences in how you present it as a game will be dependent on who the target audience is. So, if you're teaching Sarah, the 40-year-old stay-at-home mom / engineering master's degree holder from the earlier example, you're probably not going to teach her the same way you would teach a 12-year-old or a friend who's only just sitting, they're just hanging out with you for the day and you happen to go by the comic shop and they asked what it was, right? Use your judgment. That's the number one rule, is use your judgment about who you're teaching to play and how you think it's going to be most effective to teach them, because you know that person better than I do. I'm going to set up some guidelines that are really, I found, generally very effective, but there will always be exceptions, right? I ran into my major one with a friend of mine, goes by the name Steven, who, when I was teaching him to play, I neglected the fact that he had played a lot of other games previously and that his learning style wasn't like mine. And so that's why I throw in this caveat, because when I was teaching him, he wanted to know all the in-depth combos right off the get-go, and I can't do that with games personally, right? That's not how I learn, and that's not how I've seen a lot of people learn. So speaking of, the number one thing is don't throw too much information at them. Information overload is a very real problem, and if you feel like you've thrown just about the right amount of information at them, you are probably giving them too much. So, repeat after me. These are how the rules work, unless a card says otherwise. Now, this is definitely a philosophy that's also the Magic team has taken with their starter packs, which are a fantastic way to get people into it if you're just looking for a quick dry, ready to go thing, is with the starter packs, a lot of the cards specifically spell out what the keywords do in reminder text. Because remember, that reminder text is there not for long-time players. Yeah, we use it occasionally because reading the card explains the card, the mantra of anyone who's been playing longer than 6 months. But it's really there for the new players. It's there for the people who have never seen this ability before. And so utilize that. Use the fact that it's there. Usually the first thing I do, well, the fourth thing I do, but one of the most important things I do when I sit down to teach someone to play Magic is I explain to them, hey, the rules I am about to tell you are always true unless a card specifically says otherwise, and it will specifically say otherwise. From there, we usually move into teaching them how to do the setup for the game. For this, I recommend already go to one of the custom playmat sites or some such and get a playmat from there. So yeah, go to a custom playmat place and get something like, basically a playmat that spells out the different zones. You can also find, most stores have these. We have a big paper one that we use, and it spells out the zones. Another important thing is to have the turn order. Don't have every single piece, but have like the beginning of turn, main phase, beginning of turn, draw phase, main phase 1, combat phase, damage phase, main phase 2, and end phase. That's really the big thing, and don't forget the cleanup step. Anyways, that's really the big thing to do, is to have that information readily available. We use the one that Wizards provided us about a year or two ago. It's pretty easy to get copies, or to find them at your local game store, and you can make one yourself. If you don't have that and you don't want to put in the effort or the money to get a custom playmat that has it on it, or to track down a pre-made playmat that has that information on it, I then highly recommend, if you buy a commander deck or a 2-player starter or a starter deck for whatever reason, they always come with that little white stiff packet in the back. It's not a packet, it's a folded over piece of like card stock that has the turn order printed on it in more detail than what I just gave. This is a godsend. Whenever anybody opens anything like that, or we open any sealed product and we get those, we save those because they are perfect for new players. You just unfold them and set it next to them and tell them, hey, this is how the turn order goes. From there, we usually go into setting up the game. You're going to find that in my explanation of how to teach somebody the game, I'm going to say a lot of things and then you're not going to do them. Because you're going to say a lot of things and then you're not going to do them. And it's very important that you don't do them, because you have to remember that the person you're playing with has no idea what they're doing, or at least assuming you're teaching the person I think you're teaching. It's always safe to assume the person has no idea what they're doing, and as such, the first thing that you're going to say and not do is, so normally turn order, whoever plays first is determined randomly. This can be flipping a coin, rock, paper, scissors, rolling dice for high or low roll. But I'm going to take first turn. The reason you are going to take the first turn, even though normally it would be randomly determined and you may be tempted to randomly determine it for your friend, is if they have no clue what they're doing, giving them first turn is a ton of unnecessary pressure. You have just basically told them, I'm throwing you in the pool and I want to see how you swim. Doesn't sound like that, but that is definitely what it is. Well, that's why you take first turn, because then you can show them exactly how kind of a first or second turn goes, and they won't get confused by all the excess cards in their hand. Again, this is assuming you're dealing with someone who doesn't really play any kind of game like this or Pokemon or whatnot, or maybe they don't play anything as complicated, or they play something where, like Skyrim, where everything's taken care of in the background, or Hearthstone, where a lot of the mechanics are, like the actual physical movements are taken care of by the computer, right? So you don't tap your gems in Hearthstone, you just get them, if I'm remembering correctly, because it has been a very long time since I played Hearthstone. Anyways, Second thing you're going to do, you're going to shuffle up your deck. You're going to have them shuffle up your deck, up their deck. It doesn't matter how shuffled their deck already is. You're going to do that. Then you're going to say, hey, you set your deck down, they set their deck down. Now we shuffle each other's decks. And you shuffle each other's decks. It's just good Magic etiquette. Never too early to start teaching good Magic etiquette. Teach it to babies if you trust them with your cards. Then you take those now shuffled decks. You take your deck back. They take their deck back. And you draw your first hand of cards. And again, you're taking first turn. So you can look at them, but you be sure to tell them, hey, normally you don't look at your cards until first turn is determined who's taking first turn. But since it's me and we already know that, I'm gonna look at them. Then you're going to say something, your second thing you're gonna say and not do. Normally you play with your hand of cards kept secret from your opponent. But for this game, I am gonna play what is called open-faced. Spread your cards out in front of you in a neat line so that your opponent, the person you're teaching, can see your cards. It doesn't need to be upside down or anything. They don't need to be able to read them, but they need to be able to see what the cards are, and they let them, this is totally anathema, but let them reach over if they need to and move cards to look at them. Remember, you're not playing to win. You're playing to show them how to play. So you're going to show them these things. You should have a good spread of cards, assuming you're using a starter deck. You should have preferably a creature, a sorcery, an instant, and a land. You're going to go, okay. So explain what a mana cost is. Explain what a card speed is. You don't really have to explain card type. Just explain the speeds. Because card type is kind of like, explain sorcery speed and instant speed. If you want to get into the card types, explain the difference between permanence and non-permanence. But if you try to get into all the different card types, there's no way, unless you dig through your deck, you're going to have a visual representation handy. And digging through your deck takes time. Time that, during that time, you can lose the attention, the focus of the person you're trying to teach. Again, I usually teach children between like 9 and 14. But I have seen this happen with teenagers as well as one particularly, unfocused 20-year-old. It's not likely to happen with older people, but it can. Anyways, so explain those differences and be sure to ask them, are you with me so far? Then find some reason to mulligan. You always mulligan, because explaining that you can mulligan is all well and good, but for a lot of people I have found, it is easier to just show them. Right, just show them what a mulligan is, especially now that scry has been added as part of the mulligan. And then that way, hopefully they're playing open face as well. I always give the people I'm playing with the option not to play the open face, but hopefully they're playing open face as well. They can look at their hand, and rather than playing that awkward game where neither of you can see each other's hands, and you're like, do you want a mulligan? And they're like, what's a mulligan? Well, mulligan's when you take your cards, you shuffle your deck again, and you draw 6 new ones instead of 7. And they're like, no, I'm not gonna mulligan. And in reality, they're sitting on like 5 lands, and 2 6-drops and a 1-drop. Like, you avoid that, which is always nice, because that definitely kills the tempo for them to not have anything to play. Now, you're being very hands-on this game. You're very much kind of walking them through it, but it's you giving them your undivided attention. So from there, you've mulliganed. You've taken the new hand. You can mulligan this hand again if you want, but you don't have to. You always mulligan the first time. You don't always have to mulligan the second. Explain that you're looking for about 3 lands, preferably covering both of your colors. If you have a more than 2 color deck, I usually use the starter decks for this, either the free ones that are handed out at most game stores, which, by the way, free decks at most game stores from Wizards of the Coast for new players. Either use those, which are 2 colors, or I'm using a starter deck, which is usually 2 colors. And that makes it a lot easier figuring out what it constitutes a good hand. But I'm looking for that. I explained to them I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for preferably 3 things I can cast in the first 4 turns. You want to do that because while it's not great for competitive play, it will keep the tempo of their first couple of games going relatively quickly and is more likely to keep them engaged with Magic. Because being mana screwed because you took a hand that only had like 3 things you could drop turn to, you drop 2 things turn 2 and then you had nothing else, or you don't have anything you can drop till turn 5, that's boring. And it really feels like the game is unfair and cheating you out when you lose that way. Anyways, so you've mulliganed. They have potentially mulliganed. You're starting your first turn. You are going to play your turn as you normally would, and just you play through, but be sure to highlight each of the steps. This is very important. You should be saying untap. Usually the way I mantra it out is untap. We don't have anything that says we care about untap. Upkeep. We don't have anything that says it cares about upkeep. Draw. I draw a card. Main phase. I play a land. I can play 1 land per turn. It's a permanent, so it stays on the field. The only non-permanents are sorceries and instants. Everything else is a permanent. And then you go, okay. So from there, combat. I don't have any creatures that can attack. I use creatures to attack and reduce somebody's life from 20 to 0, which is the main win con of the game. From there you go, okay, second main phase. Again, I've already played my 1 land per turn. I could cast a spell if I have anything. And look in your hand. Oh, I don't have anything. Okay, no, I can't cast anything then. No worries. And then you move on to cleanup step, not the podcast. And you discard down to 7, which you won't have to because it's first turn and you haven't drawn a card. Because even though I just said I untap, upkeep, draw, I draw my first card for the turn. It's first turn. You don't actually draw. You knew that. I didn't, apparently. How long did I say I've been doing this? Anyways, so back on topic. From there, you end your turn and you make it their turn. Their options, even if they're playing closed face, should be fairly limited. Closed face meaning they're holding their hand up, and they're most likely going to play a land and then also pass turn, right? Unless they're playing like Arbor Elf or something, like they're playing 1 land and they're passing turn. Then you go, okay, cool. So my turn happens again, and this time I draw because it's my second turn, and they should have drawn because it's their first turn because it's only first player first turn who doesn't draw. And then I'm gonna play a land. Hopefully you can cast a thing. And you continue mostly like this for a while, right? You'll maybe turn 3, turn 4. If you're playing with starter decks, turn 3, turn 4 is the first time you're going to drop something really actually threatening. So you're going to basically play a normal game of Magic with them. But this is very important. You are not playing to win. That doesn't mean throw the game to them, though. There is nothing worse than having the person who's teaching you throw the game and then tell you how good you are when you know that you were fumbling around in the dark like a blind man with a phosphorescent staff. Zombie Orpheus Entertainment owes me royalties. They don't at all. They wouldn't owe me royalties. They would owe me promotion? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyways, you're not looking to win. You're also not looking to lose. You are going to play a game, but play subpar. For those of you who are really good Magic players, this is going to be really hard, but bad blocks are okay. Show them what a bad block looks like by making that mistake. Because you know what? If they're brand spanking new, they're probably still not going to beat you. Even if you make suboptimal plays, just to show them what those suboptimal plays look like and why they're not great and you could have done better, you will still probably beat them. Because you have that information and that knowledge. They didn't even know it was a bad play until you pointed it out, right? So bad blocks, bad plays, they're not actually that bad for learning games. In fact, they're very useful because they get to see you fail and understand where you went wrong. And then again, don't let them win. The game is going to end at some point because all games have to end at some point. Don't let them win. Don't waffle stomp them into the ground and make them cry home to mom, but don't let them win. Last but not least, this is probably the most important part, is play again. When you're done and everything is shuffled up and you've put the graveyards back and you've discarded your hands and you're shuffling your decks again, play again. You don't have to go through the whole ritual again this time. Don't mulligan if you don't want to. Play more like an actual game, and just as you keep playing, take off another set of training wheels. I specifically keep multiple power levels of deck because when I play someone, depending on where I think they are in the learning curve, I pull out a different deck. And to the point where there's at least 2 of my friends who considered it a big endorsement for me to say, okay, do you want to face my modern deck? My modern deck is not great. It's not competitive. Oh god, is it not competitive? Starving college student can't afford snaps, why? Anyways, it's not competitive, but it's still a way more complicated, higher barrier to entry deck than most things new players are going to deal with. And so when they beat that, even though they don't realize that it's really not competitive, they still feel really accomplished because I've been building it up this whole time. Now, it may not be the same day, it may not be the same week, it may not be the same year that they actually finally beat whatever you designate as your highest tier deck. But the point is, it's there, and you mention it, and maybe, you know, after 10, 12 games, they're getting more confident, you break it out, and you do waffle stomp them. You do take that moment where finally that smug little 10-year-old jerkwad can eat it! Just eat it! You didn't beat me, I let you beat me! That's what I will tell everybody who actually listens to that story. The kid I'm talking about took second at our last store champs. We actually had his dad on for episode 3. Alex is a really good player now and consistently beats my modern deck, and he does not let me forget it. Yay, 11-year-olds. Alright, that's pretty much everything. That's how I recommend you teach a player their first game. And if you have any comments, critiques, criticisms, questions, or you just like me to run you or someone you know through a game, then, hey, you know, get in the comments, come into the store. I'd be totally happy to see you guys. I'm very excited for all the new Magic stuff that's coming out. I love talking about it. I mean, we created a whole podcast just for that. So I look forward to hearing from you guys. If you have suggestions for future episodes, feel free to leave those in the comments as well. I believe in 2 weeks, we're going to be coming back with more Masters 25 spoilers, some modern deck tech review, and Dominaria talks. What are we hoping is going to be in it? I feel like we haven't done that yet. Yeah, that's going to be exciting. So, very excited. Glad to see you guys. But alas, we have passed the untap step. The upkeep step is just a distant memory. The draw phase has come and gone. The cards are all used up. Main phase, we played a spell. Combat phase, we attacked. Second main was much the same, and now, well, it is the cleanup step. I've been Mike. Time to discard down to 7, and see you guys later.